Scott Butterworth, you have been playing Homefront, The Revolution, the game that has had a colorful development history, I think it's easy to say. It's finally out. It's out today.
Yes.
We have a review in progress up on the site. Full review will be going live tomorrow. Fingers crossed. What do you think of it just right off the bat? How good is Homefront?
It's not great. I've been seeing some other scores go up, and my score will likely be in line with those scores. If people haven't been paying attention, it's been getting a lot of 5s and 6s, a few 7s. Jim Sterling really hated it.
Right.
Which seems kind of unwarranted. I mean, he gave the game a 1, and it's not a 1. It's not great, but I managed to have quite a bit of fun playing the game, actually, but I had to overlook a lot of flaws in order to do it, and that game just has a lot of problems. I could go on.
Let's first of all talk about, I guess maybe this is unfair. I mean, you can see it in the footage right now. So you sit next to Peter, and Peter was playing Quake 3, which is in glorious 60 frames a second.
When I was playing Doom.
Sorry, what did I say? Quake 3?
You said Quake 3.
No, you were not playing Quake 3. Jesus. I just want a new Quake. You were playing Doom, and it was like looking super buttery. And speaking of butter, Scott Butterworth next to him, you were playing... You're playing Homefront, and it looked super spotty for frame rate.
The frame rate's super choppy. Also, I like how you tell me not to make stupid jokes.
I know.
Make the butter
that was
joke.
accidental. I'm so sorry.
I think I'm maybe influencing you in a negative way. But yeah, the frame rate is just one of several technical problems. And yeah, across all 3 platforms, because I have now played the game on all 3 platforms, it is choppy pretty much throughout. There are moments when it's fine, but there are also moments when it slows to just like a total sputter. Like late in the game, there are some missions where there's a bunch of vehicles and a ton of enemies, and all of that is enough to make the game just slow to a crawl. It's crazy. But even in just sort of like regular minute-to-minute action, nothing super crazy, even then it's choppy and unpredictable.
So in terms of performance, obviously not great. What else are you sort of alluding to in relation to technical issues?
I mean, there are rough edges basically everywhere you look in this game. No matter what you're playing, you're going to find something weird. Like AI enemies that just stand there instead of fighting back. That's a weird one. Like trying to hide from enemies and being spotted through a wall. Small moments of like, there's a clip in our review in progress video where you see my hand clip through a door as I push it open. That happens literally every time in that particular animation on PS4. I noticed it doesn't happen on Xbox and PC for whatever reason.
They're the best versions to play it on.
But they have their own problems, man. Like, and all of them stutter anytime the game auto saves. Like, it's worse on PS4. The game will seriously just freeze for 2 seconds as it auto saves and then start back up again every time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's less noticeable on Xbox and PC, but it still happens. And it's like, guys, this is kind of not acceptable. I mean, the game autosaves every couple minutes, and for the, it really kind of pulls you out of the experience when it just kind of, everything stops. The game literally freezes. It's
a bit much.
Yeah.
I was put the word out for questions over Twitter. Clockworkian asks, how does Homefront open world distinguish itself from other FPS open world games?
Sure, yeah. So happy to talk about the structure, but to answer that question directly, it kind of doesn't. I mean, had the technical issues not been present, and had there been some thoughtful editing where they had, excluded parts where it kind of drags or excluded mechanics that don't work as well, it could have been a really solid game. Not a great game, not a really like inspired or groundbreaking game, but a really just fun open world shooter. But like I said, it's not groundbreaking, and those technical issues are there. So the way the game is structured is pretty basic. There are 8 different sections. Each of those sections is open, but you can't kind of walk from one end to the other like you can in a Fallout game.
Okay.
So each area exists on its own, and they are relatively large, and you can explore them freely, but you have to hop between them over the course of the campaign, which directs you through them.
So they're almost like linear, sort of like smaller open worlds or something?
Yeah. And they are all, like, if you look at the world map, you can kind of see how they're connected, but
is it like
there are loading
cities
screens
or something, or is it all?
It's all set in Philadelphia, it's which doesn't resemble any part of Philadelphia that I've ever visited or seen, but okay, fine. There are like particular landmarks that it borrows.
Is that Bruce Springsteen's song playing over the top constantly?
I wish there was some Bruce Springsteen. The sound is actually one of the weirder parts of the game where like there will be music playing when there's nothing happening. It'll be like this really tense music, and it'll just be like kind of like, is somebody about to attack me? Like why is this happening? And I'm just kind of like paranoid, and I can't tell if it's a bug or just a weird design choice. Like,
That's like I've been living my life, and you probably had the same thing over the weekend with Doom, where whenever the music is hyped, I'm like on edge completely.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's one more of these assholes around here somewhere.
Yeah. We've been conditioned. Like, that's how games work. I mean, it's
movies and everything.
Yeah, it's a very subtle, like, hey, like, you should be paying attention. Something's going to try to kill you. So it's weird when nothing tries to kill you and the music implies otherwise. What the hell?
What about the sort of general action? Is there anything that distinguishes it outside of other first-person games?
It's solid. It's fine. The shooting mechanics, the stealth doesn't work quite as well. So it's really kind of a shooter stealth game. You can approach it either way, but the stealth is super inconsistent. Like, there were times when I was spotted and I didn't understand why, and there were times when I would see someone's awareness meter starting to fail, and I would just sprint in the opposite direction, and that was fine for some reason. You think that would cause their meter to fill faster because this crazy person is now sprinting in the other direction, but it didn't seem to make a difference. But the shooting is actually pretty fun. It feels a lot like a Far Cry game, which makes sense given that this is a CryEngine game. So, I mean, you have kind of moddable weapons. You can add attachments on the flies, all that kind of stuff. So there's nothing particularly distinctive about it or really memorable about the moment-to-moment shooting. But it can be fun. It can get really frantic and chaotic. The enemies are not bullet sponges, which is really nice, but neither are you. So you kind of have to be careful and thoughtful. And there's actually like small platforming moments as well, where you have to get to like a transceiver on top of a building. You need to find your way up. There's some certain moments like that that remind me of like Dying Light, for example.
Right.
So that actually helps to break up the gameplay and add another kind of dimension. So again, like, I had fun in a lot of those moments. It's just that there's so much other stuff to deal with in the meantime that really pulls the experience down.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
I guess last point on this, there's some sort of co-op stuff going on here as well. How does that play out?
Yeah, so there are two completely separate components in this game. There is the single player campaign, which is actually like remarkably long. It's a very substantial campaign, and this is one of the sort of best attributes of the game, that there is a really long and substantial and varied campaign. It's probably a good 20 hours for most players.
Wow.
If you want to, if you do everything, you can easily extend that to like 25. If you just rush through, you can probably do it in 15. But it's far more substantial than the first Homefront game. But in addition to that, there is a co-op campaign, which is 6 missions that are kind of sort of designed to be replayable, but I'm not quite sure why you would. There's really nothing encouraging you to do that other than the sort of the selectable difficulty level. But each of those can be completed in like 10 to 15 minutes. So 6 missions is not a lot. And there's there's a really basic unlock system, but it's all done through loot crates, so you can't actually pick what you're unlocking. You just have to hope you get what you want. I'm not super impressed. I don't feel like it really adds much to the experience, to be completely honest. But again, it's a totally separate component. So if you're interested, you think you can get something out of it, great, go play it. If not, it's just kind of there, and I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what else is just kind of there?
What's that?
Time Splitters 2.
Yeah, that's a real thing. There's an Easter egg in the game, which they've actually
really?
announced.
Yeah.
So this is, I believe public knowledge. But yeah, I actually stumbled onto this without knowing that. There's one section late in the game where you're like in a prison and you go up to one of these like abandoned floors and you find an old arcade cabinet. And if you approach it, it's like hit button to play. Like, okay, and so I did, and it turns out that it's like 3 levels from Time Splitters 2.
It actually boots it up?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it plays the game's opening cutscene, and you can play those missions, and right?
Is this like without getting into spoilers about other games, this seems to be the new thing in video games now, is that you just throw another video game inside of it?
We're at that point where that's a thing that can make sense.
well.
Yeah, I think we're 3 for 3 in a week. That's
I think
crazy.
didn't the original Black Ops have like Zork or something? Like it had...
Oh, could have. I don't remember.
There was some like it's full game hidden away, and I think that was the first time I remember finding a complete game within another game.
I bet
a
a complete movie. Remember The Darkness had To Kill a Mockingbird in it?
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really?
You know, you sit down with your girlfriend, like Jackie sits down with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And like To Kill a Mockingbird plays on a television. It's the whole movie. You can literally watch like Atticus Finch chat for like 2 hours.
That's really crazy.
Yeah, it's really weird.
My favorite inclusion would be in Blades of Steel on the NES, where between periods, I think it was every period, maybe it wasn't every one, you could play Gradius.
Oh, really?
On a shooter to kill the time, and then until you died, you would go
Wow.
back to
And
playing hockey.
that loading screen patent is now gone, so maybe we'll see more of that sort of stuff with Ridge Racer and Galaxia, I think it was in that one.
Although interestingly, we're seeing fewer and fewer loading screens. There are plenty in Homefront, unfortunately. But games like Fallout or Witcher, have basically eliminated them. So it's a real shame we're not going to get too many loading screen games.
Maybe not a massive shame. A lot of the people in the chat were noticing the little autosave pauses that were happening in our gameplay there.
Yeah,
So,
I thought you had a stroke for a
every
second.
time. Every time. And what's funny is often the audio will continue on, so it's not like the game itself is
no.
frozen.
It's like you're watching
just
a dodgy stream of a sports game or
That's
something.
yeah. So I hope that registers for people watching our footage of it. It's not like the video they're watching had an encoding problem or their internet is faltering. That's what the game actually looks like when you're playing it. The action just stops for seriously a full 2 seconds. Which I mean, I realize it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're playing and
After a
just
while.
all of a sudden everything freezes, it's enough to be like, what's going on? And okay, there it goes. It's weird, man. I'm not a
stuff. All right, when will we see the full review for Homefront: The Revolution on GameSpot.com?
It will be up tomorrow. Now that I've played all 3 versions of the game, which, as I've mentioned, was not the most fun. I mean, I don't want to completely crap all over the game. It does some cool things. I had some fun playing it. It's a shame that it's kind of a mess. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.